Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I appreciate the support on this Wednesday morning. This is a new topic for me. For the past couple of conferences, I've spoken about uranium, but there have been quite a few deals that have popped up in Idaho over the past couple of years, and some that have really gained traction on the development front. And I also happened to move to Spokane, Washington last year, so this is now in my backyard. Since I moved to Spokane, which is just down the road from Coeur d'Alene, I've done a couple of site visits in Idaho. I've gone to Revival Gold, I've gone to Midas Gold, and I must say that I've been quite impressed with what I've seen, not only on the resource and the project front, but on the people front, the policy front, the taxation front. And I think Idaho is just a bit overlooked when it comes to resources in the United States. Everybody wants to talk about Nevada, Arizona, Utah, but Idaho has some high quality projects and is a very good environment for mining. So I wanted to spend a few minutes today talking about that and the experiences I've had there and the companies that I'm involved with. And then after that, we'll have some Idaho-based companies come up here and tell you their stories. And then I'll rejoin them for a panel on Idaho. So this is very Idaho-centric for the next hour or so. I was editing my presentation last night, and I realized that it should have been called Idaho Reemerges as a U.S. mining hotspot, because it has quite a lengthy history in mining. And before I get into that, I should tell you who I am. My name is Nick Hodge. I'm the founder of Outsider Club. That's a daily investment newsletter, sector agnostic, really just focused for retail investors that you can sign up for. It's been around for 3 or 4 years now, and on the back of that, I have some paid products. One is Nick Hodge's Early Advantage. That's a speculative newsletter, comes out every Thursday, just dealing with risk capital and early stage investments, sector agnostic. And then Nick's Notebook, where I offer private placement funding opportunities to accredited investors, mostly in the mining space, but a little bit in cannabis and also in medical technology. And then on the side, I put on another hat and I own Resource Stock Digest, and that's a free website where you can get lengthy interviews with management of companies we like in the resource space. We help tell their stories and give investors free information about them. The resourcestockdigest.com, I'll have it up at the end. So this is the Fraser report from last year, the 2017 annual survey of mining companies. And if I have a laser pointer, I can show you where Idaho is. It's right here. It's ranked 28th overall in the Fraser report, which is quite high. I mean, you'll see some very good mining areas that are ranked below it. If you look around, there's Catamarca there, Brazil, Colombia. And it's ranked 28th overall, so it's quite a good jurisdiction to be in. And then if you look just at the United States, it's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. You might be able to discount Michigan when it comes to gold and other resources. So quite high when you look at it just as one of the states. And I'm going to read for a little bit, but there's quite a robust history of mining in Idaho. In fact, the first non-native settlers that went to Idaho went there to mine gold because there was a gold discovery that was about 150 years ago, and that was the reason that Idaho was really first founded as a territory to begin with. According to the U.S. Bureau of Mines, Idaho has the most mineable gold of any other state, produces more newly mined silver than any other state. Just down the road from where I live now in Coeur d'Alene, they've produced over $2 billion of metal since 1885. The Coeur d'Alene area there along the highway has produced more silver than all other states combined. And Idaho is also home of the America's largest silver lead mine, Bunker Hill, and also the largest zinc mine, which is the Star Mine. And in the southeastern part of the state, there's quite a large phosphate district that contains more than half of all U.S. phosphate reserves. And I should also add that Idaho's nickname is the Gem State. They have you can find 6 types of gems in Idaho. Normally they're found in clusters of 2 or 3 types of gems. So it's not just gold, it's not just silver. There's base metals, there's gems, and there's also what we're referring to as battery metals now. There's some cobalt projects as well. This goes back to the history. This is a photo I snapped of what was the Lemhi mining camp back in the day in 1866. There used to be 150 people that lived in this town mining gold before it shut down, and the buildings still stand there. I think it's quite a poignant photo because just around the bend from where these are, the pit is still there, and Revival Gold is now working. This is the Bear Track project working to bring that back online. I have to read again. I stole this off a website that was about the history of Idaho mining, but it makes a perfect transition into the companies I'm going to talk about. So it says the story of mining in Idaho should close with the story of Stibnite, one of Idaho's youngest ghost towns. Stibnite is also the mineral name for antimony ore, and they were mining that in the 30s to support the war effort. And today, it shut down in 1952, and today it says only old buildings and machines remain, with the huge open pit mine is now a little lake. And that's kind of an understatement. That's the lake. This is the photo I snapped on a tour of Midas's Stibnite project. So that's the lake that previous slide was referring to. And what has happened here is it's blocked this fish passage, and it's been blocked for a long time. And I think it's at this point I should talk about what Midas is doing and why Idaho is keen on projects like Midas. Midas is going to remediate all this. They're going to fix this. They're going to put a end run around, I would call it in football terms, for the fish to be able to migrate for the first time in 100 years. And it's for reasons like that, the environmental remediation, the jobs that it's going to create, the capital investment that it's going to bring into the state, that the legislature and the governor and the lieutenant governor in Idaho really support these projects and are really championing these projects more so than, in my opinion, any other state at this point in time. And there's some real clear evidence for this. So last month, this is an article dated from April 2018. A group of 10 or so mining companies in Idaho got together and put on Idaho Investor Days, and they went on a road show to Toronto and New York, and the governor, Butch Otter, he went with them. And he was basically championing mining in Idaho. They went to Toronto, they went to New York, they met with investment bankers, and whereas normally just the company and its representatives would go, in this case you had the governor actually touting openly that, hey, we're open for business, and not just non-mining business, but we're open for mining business. We want mining investment in Idaho. And another point on that is the Idaho State Legislature has also recently passed for Midas's project, I guess you could call it a joint resolution, Democrats and Republicans. And if you know anything about the political climate in the United States right now, both sides really don't agree on much, but they agree that this project should get built. And so they passed a joint resolution get sent to the president saying, hey, let's get this project approved post haste. We want this to happen. And I just think it's rare and it's unique that politicians, regulators want this project to go along, and not just Midas, as I picked that as an example, but as you'll see in the next couple of slides, Otis Gold and Integra Resources and Revival Gold as well. I'm going to jump right into the projects, and as I said, you'll have a chance to hear from these companies in a second. This is Midas Gold, just a snapshot of what they have going on. If you're interested, Midas trades under the ticker MAX here in Canada, MDRPF in the United States. And I'm just going to highlight some of these things here, but if you take a second to read through the slide, I think you'll get a sense of the quality of projects that Idaho has. For example, this is already the 8th largest gold reserve, just Midas's project in the United States, has the potential for much more upside from there to become quite larger. And grade is also something I want to touch on. As it stands right now, this project would be the 4th highest grade open pit gold mine in the country at 1.7 grams per ton. And, people get excited about projects in Nevada, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 grams a ton. And here you're double to triple that in some cases. So it's not just large projects, but high grade projects as well. And low cost. I think all in sustaining costs here over the life of the project is some $600 and change, under $600 for the first 4 years. And there's also a strategic antimony credit. You remember in the beginning of the talk, I talked about all the different resources that Idaho has. The antimony in this case is something that really gives this project an edge. a real incentive for government to want to bring it on because it's a critical metal, a critical mineral that acts as a flame retardant, and most of it is produced in China with little to no production in the United States. So, if you've been paying attention to the trade war headlines and the threats from Russia and other countries to cut off supplies of resources, then it's really time for America to take a long, hard look at itself and say, hey, we need to start producing some of this stuff for ourselves. And Midas gives a real chance to do that with the antimony resource. This is the slide from Otis Gold presentation. Otis trades under the ticker OOO here in Canada. And they have two projects. They have the Kilgore project and they have the Oakley project, just over 800,000 ounces at Kilgore and 163,000 ounces at the Oakley project. Craig Lindsay will be up to talk to you a bit more about that project, their projects in a second. But look at the grades again. I mean, they're hitting here 2.5 grams of gold, 4.22 grams of gold over long widths, 94.5 meters. I mean, these are exceptional is the word. I think these are exceptional intercepts of high grade gold. And then you can look and see what's around. This is here's Bear Track, which I mentioned earlier, Midas's Stibnite project, Kilgore for Otis, Oakley for Otis, Delamar from Integra, which I'll talk to you about in a second. This is the silver corridor right here, and my house is right there. So this is Revival Gold, being run by Hugh Agro, formerly of Kinross. He's put together two projects there next door to each other, Bear Track and Arnett Creek. Bear Track is a large former past producer, and they're working on drilling that and growing the resource right now. Combined between Bear Track and Arnett Creek, they have just about 1.5 million ounces of gold. And look at the grades again, 3.5 grams a ton over 65 meters. We can look forward to a resource update shortly for Revival Gold, as we can for Otis Gold, who is still shooting for a resource update this quarter. And I should also talk about some of the backing that's coming. We'll talk about this a bit more in the panel, but Orion, if you know anything about Orion, is a big player in the mining space and the resource space, and they've got a stake in Revival, and some other big names have come in. Franco-Nevada, Teck, Barrick recently investing in Midas. I mean, these are serious resource investors that are now coming into Idaho, and so at this point in time, it's time to recognize Idaho for what it is, and that's the host of some very large and high quality metal projects. And the last one I'll mention, Revival Gold, by the way, is RVG, if anybody is interested. And the last one I'll mention is Integra Resources. This is George Shalamas's reincarnation of Integra Gold. He's looking to do it again, and he's got this project, Delamar in Idaho and Florida Mountain, that between the two have 2.7 million ounces of gold. So, I mean, I've just talked about 4 quick projects, and what are we up to? 4, 7, 10 million ounces of gold in these 4 projects at least. And they're drilling, and they just put out some very quality holes, I think, about 2 weeks ago. So all going swimmingly in Idaho right now. I've got just a short time left, and then Steve Quinn from Midas is going to come up in here and talk to you about Midas Gold and its Stibnite project, and then Craig Lindsay will come up. That's right here in about 20 minutes after they speak. And I'll give you my websites. I can be found at theoutsiderclub.com. That's the free daily newsletter. And resourcestockdigest.com is the other free websites where you can get interviews with some of the companies I mentioned. Stephen is interviewed quite often by my partner, Gerardo Del Real, and as is Craig Lindsay. I think he was on Resource Stock Digest just this week. So that's a free resource. And if you want, you can sign up for the weekly email on that one as well. If you have any questions, you might just want to save them, because I'll be back up here in a few minutes and you'll be able to ask the gentlemen themselves, the leaders of these companies. So I appreciate you coming out and learning a bit about Idaho Gold, and hopefully when we get the panel going, we can expand a bit more on what's happening there. Thank you.